What's going on, Diggletdreams? Got Mathras here. Today, I want to do something a little different, more of a replay. I've done replays before, but I want to kind of take this one specifically and talk about something that you can take away from this, something you can learn from watching this replay. Now, this is my buddy Quinlan Ding. I have been playing competitive Pokemon with this guy literally since I started playing competitive Pokemon. He's the guy who got me into it. It was back in Black and White, like, oh man, it must have been like at least like 8 years ago, probably by this point. I don't even know how long ago it was. But we still share a lot of replays from whenever we're on the ladder, just fooling around. And he recently sent me this one with this really cool team. And it shows perfectly how to condition your opponent, which is a really useful tactic within the game of competitive Pokemon. So I thought I could use this replay as a really good example of how to do that, so you can use that in your future matches. So the key here is to keep in mind that Quinlan Ding's Chestnut takes on about half of his opponent's team, namely the Aggron, the Golisopod, and the Doublade. So it's a big defensive threat for the opponent there. Also, with the team weakened, Jolteon basically sweeps. Some of the cool sets that Quinlan Ding is running is Z Psychium Z Synchronoise Jolteon. For those who don't know, Synchronoise is a psychic type move that Jolteon gets. It's really powerful, but the reason nobody runs it is because it can only be used on Pokemon that have the same type, so it can only be used on electric type Pokemon. It's honestly not bad against like Rotoms in the tier, Galvantulas, other Jolteons, and of course with Z moves being out, it just makes it into a really, really strong psychic type Z move, so that's great for taking on things like Venusaur and Dragalge. So Jolteon looking like a really powerful Pokemon versus this team. But why don't we get into it? I'm not gonna keep trying to analyze the whole thing before we get into it. So don't mind the weird nicknames that Quinlan Ding has. He has an affinity for those kind of things. So unfortunately, Jolteon takes a huge hit turn one, but there's that Synchronoise doing over half to that Rotom. But of course, it's gonna have to switch out, and the Assault Vest. What's this thing called? The Assault Vest Spider is going to eat that up. And in comes the Golisopod. So now here's the first condition. So right there, Quinlan Ding doubled into Jolteon. Obviously you don't want to be on a Golisopod with Jolteon. So here's the first condition. Quinlan Ding shows that Chestnut is his switch in to Golisopod, reveals the Rocky Helmet, shows that it takes no damage from the first impression, so it is a great switch in for Golisopod. So of course Golisopod switches out, and Quinlan Ding breaks that really nicely, going back into a Spider to take the Draco with the Assault Vest, and then smack him back with a Mirror Coat. So that is one of the big threats to Chestnut gone, as well as a potential threat for Jolteon. So great in play for Quinlan Ding. Again, here's the second condition. Chestnut comes in on the Golisopod, takes the Leech Life fairly well, and Golisopod's going to be forced to switch. In comes the Doublade. I don't know why, but Quinlan is able to get a Leech Seed up on this. And now this comes in, the Spider. Araquanid, that's its name. As Doublade Swords Dance is up, but is Leech Seeded. Liquidation does a lot, even gets a defense drop, but of course Shadow Claw is going to be able to take this thing down. No problem. Now Umbreon comes in. Foul Play, obviously going to be a big threat. Golisopod comes in, takes the Foul Play, not very well, but then, of course, Emergency Exit forces him out, and in comes the Rotom. Doesn't want to get tricked, so Umbreon switches in Jolteon, actually catches the Volt Switch, and gets some HP back, which is really nice. So Rotom's forced out there into the Espeon, as Quinlan Ding basically gets a free Volt Switch. And in comes Aerodactyl, big offensive threat. Aggron, of course, is going to come out, but Quinlan Ding predicts that nicely, goes for the Hone Claws, and is going to be able to bring Aggron down to Sturdy with an Earthquake, and then live on the Focus Sash from this Heavy Slam. So they're both down to one. And he did say this was a weird play. He shouldn't have gone for Ice Fang right here, but he did. He just didn't want to not hit the Rotom on switch, and he could have gone for Stone Edge. I guess he didn't want to miss, but there was really no reason not to, unless of course he missed. But then Ice Fang didn't really do much better, so Overheat finishes off the Aerodactyl, almost KOs the Jolteon, but Shadow Ball is going to be able to finish off the Rotom. So right here, Jolteon's looking very threatening. Rotom and Dragalge are gone. Espeon's pretty low, and obviously not. Dual Blade Aggron is at 1%, well, 6% with leftovers, but his whole team is low, essentially, is what I'm saying, and Jolteon is inside. So he only really has one play. I guess not really. He could have gone Dual Blade, but he goes Gliscod. And of course, the first impression, the Sucker Punch, the Aqua Jet, any of these moves could be coming out right now, and should be probably expected. But because Quinlanding has been conditioning his opponent so well with this Chestnut, the opponent finally decides to predict the Chestnut this turn, and Quinlanding predicts that perfectly, and is able to not get hit with a priority, and is able to just finish off the Gliscod with a Thunderbolt. So Gliscod had every opportunity to KO the Jolteon right there, but because he tried to predict and was so conditioned to expect the Chestnut to come out, that it did not work out, and that is basically the game. Yeah, so avoid the Shadow Sneak here with the Chestnut. Doesn't even go for Shadow Sneak, but Iron Head comes out, and no recovery for Dual Blade, so any damage is damage, and the opponent just has to forfeit right there. So that is just an extremely, extremely well played game by Quinlanding, able to condition the opponent and then predict him perfectly. That's the kind of thing that you only see in movies. If you learned something from this video, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, more educational stuff, let me know, either by leaving a like or commenting down below. But other than that, keep dreaming. See you next time, and peace out. Also, shoutouts to Mew More for this music.